I do think if you're in your 20s and you're like panicked about decision making, it's probably slightly less important that you like choose the right thing versus squeezing the juice out of every opportunity you're given in your 20s.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the People Fuss podcast. My name is Doug Daniels.
And I am Carrie Prince.
And we are here to bring you part 2, the long-awaited sequel to the Carrie Prince podcast episode.
Connection on life, love, and leadership as it relates to our job history. So we're going to jump right in where we left off.
That's right. Here's part 2. So, as with many other industries, the COVID-19 pandemic kind of ground things to a halt.
Yeah.
In the film industry. And so, you know, as a gig worker, essentially is what you were, going from production to production to production. You were sort of used to downtime, but not like this, right? Not like everything's shut down. You can't work. It's not that you don't have work. It's that you can't work. What did you do? How did you handle that? And what made you kind of look into what made you take that first step into the next phase of your professional life?
Yeah. So I was like 8 or 9 years into working in the realm of entertainment at that time. And we were just finishing a show and we like just barely got our wrap party in right before, literally, like we wouldn't have been able to. So right after the wrap party is when things started happening, and we had to shut down the show kind of from home. Like everybody had to take as much as they could, and then we were working from home to shut it down. Production, and especially where I had been working. So I was finishing Penny Dreadful, which was an HBO series, and the ranch that we were working at there is in a fire zone in LA, and we had to have multiple evacuations, and our team, the production office, being the moms of the show, we have to figure out how fire evacuation works. And many times I'm one of the last people that's like going out with the last like brave transpo guys and stuff. So like I'd seen some serious shit. And, you know, over the many years of dealing with actual emergencies on set, I'm actually like really trained up for emergency management. So
can you talk about one of those emergencies that...
Well, I mean, I think the fires is a good one. I definitely was one of the last people to leave the ranch, and I was driving home through walls of fire. I mean, there's
that's insane.
Freeways shut down right behind me, and and the thing is like what you realize, having people under you that are more scared. I think this is where my grandpa comes out. Like I had a 3-star general grandpa in the Air Force, and there's this like weird grit that runs in my mom's side of the family, and I have it. I don't know what it is, but it's like, don't worry, we're going to be okay. I'll go out last. Like, I don't know what happens, but I'm like, we can do this. So that was one of them. And then we had a situation one time where raining cats and dogs one day, and one of the gals that it was her first week on the job, her car multiple flipped on the freeway, and then our coordinator stopped to help her. They both got smashed into. It was this horrible thing, and we thought, and
I remember this story. You led a campaign of calling the city because of this curve turn or whatever was a dangerous area.
Yeah, when emergency vehicles showed up, they were asking them, like, because there was no way to not hydroplane. Nobody was being crazy, right? It was just raining so much in this particular freeway. The way the freeway was, everyone was hydroplaning, and like cars were just going out of control, going slowly. Like it was a road issue. So I had the whole office write the city and tell them that we felt it needed to be changed. And they acknowledged one of us that was like, we were just sort of badgering them over time. And then we saw them working on the freeway over the next year, even though they didn't really say it was because of us. I think they wanted to avoid a lawsuit, but that was a win.
I mean, whatever, dude, whatever gets it going.
But our poor secretary at that time, like he was on the phone with them when they got hit by the other car. He heard them scream and the line go dead. And I was in the office, and I was like the highest ranking person in the office. So our whole office, like he started shaking and crying. Everybody else was like, what do we do? And I was like, get on 911, tell them there's another accident, blah, blah, blah. You keep calling. Da, da, da. So like those and they are all fine. I just want to clarify that. Yeah. Thankfully, everyone is fine.
Yeah.
From that particular accident, and no one burned up in our fires. But there's something that happens on film production because the stakes are so high, the money's so high, and you are doing dangerous things sometimes. I wasn't always on set, right? You're usually like adjacent in the offices adjacent, or, if you're in a a studio lot setting, then, you know, you can go visit set, but your offices where you're coordinating everything are kind of separate. But you're still doing a lot of dangerous stuff sometimes, and you're working long hours, and you're making sure people get home safe all the time. The production office really is like the mom of the show. You work with the AD team, the assistant directing team, to make sure, and safety people to make sure everyone's okay.
Not to make a pun here, but it sounds like you were used to putting out fires. Large and small.
Yeah, and working with really big personalities.
And so
for sure,
when the pandemic hit, you kind of saw it as an opportunity to kind of continue helping in an emergency situation, or what happened?
Yes, but I will also say,
oh,
I'm not good. As soon as it was like, oh, stay home and don't do anything. And I was dating someone at the time, not this lovely gentleman here. And we had kind of just started dating, I think. So, so I was like single-ish, right? Like I lived alone, and I was a young-ish, healthy person. And in my mind, I think the grandpa thing kicks in and was like, great, well, what can I do? It wasn't like, I'm going to go help my fellow person and save all the sick people. It was more like, I'm an able-bodied person. I don't need to sit home and be scared all day. What can I do? So I started, like, I think the week or two after that show ended, when we were working from home, I basically just started looking for volunteer opportunities because I didn't want to be bored.
Yeah.
Which is not like that's sort of just like the truth of it, is that I need to be doing stuff, as he knows.
Selfish altruism.
Sure. And then I was thinking, like, where can my time be spent if I can't work? Where could my time be spent that's going to be the most helpful? So I first started doing crisis text line, where you're helping people that are in a panicky moment get from a hot moment to a cool, calm kind of thing. And the crisis text line at that time was so overwhelmed with people really freaking out about the pandemic. So I learned how to be a crisis counselor via text, which was really, really cool. And did that for a while until I volunteered for CORE, which was a nonprofit that everybody knows, which was helping at the time. And I started off as a volunteer on day one, and then they hired me immediately. So didn't really know I was being hired for a job. They said something about, we want to compensate you. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. And then, you know, a few weeks later, I was an assistant site manager. And then a few weeks later, I was a site manager. And then a few months later.
What site manager? What does that mean? What kind of a site?
Yeah, so I started off at the Woodland Hills site, which had the highest temperature ever recorded in that area that summer, and we were working on blacktop at the time with no AC in FEMA tents. Sweet.
And by site, you mean a COVID testing site? COVID
testing site. So something important to remember is, at first in California at these sites, what would happen was we had mostly drive-throughs and then walk-ups and stuff, but people were just coming. Anybody could come without any identification and get a test for free.
Get their brain tickled.
Yeah, get a test for free and get results. And this was probably one of the most extraordinary acts of beautiful government I have ever seen, I will say. I thought the mission of what they were doing was so good, because I was like, that's what it should be. If something is contagious and we don't know what it is, and everybody needs to be safe, no matter their citizenship, no matter their health insurance, that absolutely is the way to do it. So if COVID had been worse, and we say this a lot, like if people were bleeding out their eyes and, you know, dying of, dehydration or whatever, like within 5 days, you better believe you'd want every single person tested around you, no matter if they're a criminal, if they're undocumented, if they're like old, young, whatever. You'd want everyone tested. And the tests, we didn't know much about it. We didn't have vaccines. So like these sites were full of volunteers. These are people who really believed in that cause. And that was very shaping for me, because I was like, it's very different from a film set, but the idea that everyone's there for a unified sort of thing, being a volunteer, is a really special thing. And that was very shaping.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the work that I did during the onset of the pandemic with PPE manufacturing. It was a very different experience working with people then, because, I mean, yeah, technically we were all employed and getting paid to do what we were doing, but we were working 12, 16-hour days, working every weekend, you know what I mean? And nobody batted an eye. It was like, well, you know, the one of the doctors told me, he's like, my friends are in New York and they're dying. Of course we're going to be working on the weekend. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, it was just a totally different sort of mentality. So I can appreciate being around volunteers like that really believe in the mission. Would have been a pretty uplifting experience.
Yeah.
And you not only started off as a volunteer, then got hired, but you actually ended up managing the largest testing site in the country.
Yeah.
At
Dodger
Stadium.
Stadium.
So what was that like? And give us a sense of scale. I could say largest testing site in the world, and I mean, what, 20 people? Who knows? Like what?
Yeah.
What was the scale there?
Yeah. So if you think of these sites that were drive-through sites, right, you have to come up with a system of multiple lines of cars coming in, rolling down their window. I'm sure many of you remember this, like getting a test, doing it, and then like dropping it off somewhere. So at Dodger Stadium, they transformed the whole stadium to have many, many lines of cars going through all day. This is thousands and thousands of people. And the coordination, I want to be clear that these sites were successful because of the coordination of 3 different entities: CORE, the government, and the firefighters that were helping. So firefighters were sort of redirected to this. And I also think that's important because one of the other big sort of influences, especially during that time, was one of the fire chiefs there, actually several, but one of the fire chiefs there, she was extraordinary and really encouraging. She came to visit my site at Woodland Hills after I'd become site manager. And I think we were one of the more successful and sites with the least drama, and we were doing pretty well. And Dodger Stadium was not doing well. They were sort of embroiled in some bad drama with some bad players, and you can look up the news from that time to see what it is. But they needed a new site manager, and they needed to fix some of the drama pretty quickly. And we were talking about like who this was going to be. So when Dodger Stadium needed a new site manager, and I knew our site was doing well and that I'd probably have the support at that time of most upper leadership, I knew that I should apply because I thought the mission was pretty important.
That sounds it sounds odd to me that, given the urgency, I know it's hard to like remember that sense of urgency back then, but did you really have to like submit an application with like your resume?
Yes.
And like
Yeah.
all of that to get?
Yep. We did. I remember I did like a quick cover letter, my resume, and then I did some interviews. The thing is like it was a pretty small team on the core side, so the interviews were with people I already
Sure.
knew had been working with. And yeah, some of the players like that were technically above me were much, much younger and less experienced in the world than me. So I also felt like they should probably have people with like pretty good coordinating experience, because like they were taking what they could get, right? Like if they got a person that had any sort of skill, they were like, great, can you do this job? Because
they needed volunteers.
And our volunteers ranged from people who were barely just graduated from high school to lawyers in their 50s who believed in the cause. The education span was huge, the age range, the cultures people were coming from, and city workers were starting to get diverted to these sites, whether they liked it or not. They, in order to continue working, they would come to these sites.
Fill the staff needs and whatever.
Well, yeah, like they couldn't do their jobs anymore, but if they wanted to keep getting paid, they had to work at one of these sites. And some of them loved it, some of them did not like it. So we're also dealing with those folks coming in. So you have fire department, you have volunteers, you have city workers,
indentured servants.
yeah, it was a really big range of people.
So in terms of numbers, just to give folks a sense of scale, what when you say largest testing site, how many people were you first of all managing?
I'm looking over.
Oh,
I
at
think
the picture there.
Yeah, does it say
It's like
3 million on there? I think that was our 3 million mark. We had tested 3 million people, so that was a big marker, and that was several months.
That's not all under your tenure.
No.
That was like, but you did.
That
at
was
least,
total.
I mean, how long were you there at Dodger
Well,
Stadium?
I was there during the peak right before it transferred to a vaccination site as well.
Gotcha.
So I left basically right at the end of the year, 2020. It was sort of this like huge. I was only there for a few months.
Were they just I just thought of this, but were they doing the testing like there, or did they have to send the samples elsewhere?
No,
like,
there was a lab that we worked with, and so the samples got
there,
dropped
like,
off.
White tents set up on the baseball diamond kind
No,
of thing?
that's
or?
actually something LAFD did. So they would bring the test, all of the huge things that like contained all the tests, they would bring those to the lab, and then the results would come in digitally for everybody. So
Okay.
the
From
coordination,
like the LA Department of Public Health or something like that.
no, they were using independent labs, I think.
Okay.
Which was a big deal at that time too. I don't know if people remember, but like these labs that were developing these tests, like there was a lot of permission given because we were in an emergency, and so like in a normal world, more time might have been taken for some of the stuff. And I don't know how much people remember there were two different kinds of tests, right? And so like all the science was happening at lightning speed, and we had the lab that we were working with in the beginning, you know, they had to find funding to be able to do all this stuff, and so they were also another important partner. I don't think that's fair to not mention them.
So walk us through the process of how you would take the microchip tracker and put it onto the nasal swab.
I know.
And then insert it into people.
Yeah,
what was
everyone who got the jab, I control you.
Yeah, we know.
Just so you know.
Yeah, it's not your cell phone that's the tracker.
I know. Can I tell a quick story about that, actually?
Please.
So I want you to think of this from my perspective, right? I'm at Woodland Hills, my first site, my beloved site. Everyone who started me at Woodland Hills, you know, we suffered, babes. You know, one of the things I would do there is like manage the craziness that happened at the site. Lots of people are stressed out because they're there. Maybe they have a work requirement to get tested, and if they can't get tested that day and get the results by Tuesday, they can't work for some reason. So sometimes they're mad if they're at the end of the day and we have to cut it off. Because again, I have volunteers working for me. These are not people getting paid. These are people volunteering their time. So I have to cut the line off somewhere. And some of these cars would get mad and they would bust through the cones and demand to be tested. And like scary stuff happened. People were being really unreasonable because they were desperate and sad. And you would also get, you know, this is when conspiracies started to become really real. And even early on, this was early on, we would have people that were experiencing homelessness or obviously mentally unwell. They would like kind of go through the lines of cars, bang on their windows and yell at them about the microchips and stuff.
Oh, boy. And
so we don't want to scare people. And so we have to like find nice ways of redirecting these folks and like hoping the best for them, right? Like they see that something's going on, they're attracted to all the buzz, and so they come and start like harassing all these cars that are in line. And
where are the masked gunmen kidnapping people when you need them?
Oh, God. So my first experience with actually like anti-vax conspiracy was like truly mentally unwell people, and they really deeply believed that, you know, it went from everything from like the microchip thing to like aliens to like, just the beliefs about what was happening when you have a set of volunteers that are just trying to keep people safe and those conspiracies start. I cannot tell you how like mind-bogglingly crazy it feels when you're there with hard science all around you and good, hardworking people that are trying to keep people safe all around you. But then the second thing happened, which is that I started to experience some conspiracy against my decisions once we started hiring people for money instead of having volunteers that were behind the cause, right? So as soon as we switched to people that were getting the job because it paid $20 an hour and they were desperate for money, I had to make calls about shutting down the site for heat. And I would worry because we didn't have AC trailers at that time. We got them later.
And this is asphalt, blacktop.
This is black asphalt. This is 112-degree heat in the summer. And again, these are like all different kinds of people with all different kinds of, these are not firefighters. Like the firefighters could handle it. They were great. They kind of made fun of us sometimes because we were wimps. I wasn't, but I had a lot of people that were sensitive to the heat, and we did have people go down for heat exhaustion and need to be treated. And so sometimes we would be looking at the weather, and, you know, weather is not perfect, I think, as most of us know, but not all of us know. Some people think that we all control the weather, but we don't.
No, it's just the Jews.
Yeah. So I'd be looking at the weather and think, okay, it's supposed to be 98 degrees. And then the next day it says it's going to jump to 105. I can make the call to close my site and offer my workers in Woodland Hills to go to some of these other sites that are supposed to be 10 degrees cooler. Because again, we were in a heat sink in LA. So one time I made the call to close the site, but the weather wasn't quite as hot as it was predicted on the day. And like the site managers and our supervisors, we all agreed on what these like heat thresholds were based on what the weather told us, right? But you know, when you have workers who maybe can't drive to another site, suddenly you've messed up their life. And if they don't have the trust in you as a leader yet, because they just took this job, I didn't interview some of these people, right? Like they just like would come to me as my workers. And I'm like, okay, you're at our site now. I started to get rumors that I was closing the site for like nefarious reasons. Like it was this other reason that I was closing the site. And I was like so hurt by it at first. And I was like, wow, I'm really like literally trying to keep people alive and keep people safe. And we're giving you an option to work somewhere else. And it's actually your problem that you can't make it to another site, right? But what I realized was that like instead of getting mad, instead of like pushing back and just whatever, I actually used my down team to like create more build more trust so that these people could come straight to me and talk to me about why I'm closing the site. And that worked really well. Mm-hmm. I don't think that would work the same today maybe, but at that time it worked well.
I don't think Bill Gates has the time to talk to all the people that think he's injecting them with trackers. Newsflash, the tracker is in your pocket.
I just think it's weird that microchip conspiracy came from the one homeless guy in Woodland Hills. I don't know how it spread so far. I really don't.
Well, he's persuasive, I guess. So I know that, just because I know you, that your experience managing such a large site and so many different personalities and processes and all of that, departments, that really kind of made you seek out an MBA. Is that correct?
Well,
how did that thought process go?
Joke that I got a rage MBA actually.
A rage MBA.
It's a rage MBA. It was a revenge MBA kind of. So the experience of COVID site managing, the end of that experience was actually really heartbreaking for me. And I can't get into it because of NDAs, but the end of that experience was like really, really hard for me because I was feeling like I was fighting for the right things and not everyone was on the same page.
And you didn't necessarily want to leave.
I definitely didn't, but I also didn't want what the other option was at that time.
Right.
And so actually I talked to the fire chief that ended up writing one of my letters to get my MBA. And she was the one who said, you can use this in other ways and go do this thing. So I had not really thought of it until I managed that site. I had the extraordinary experience of coming to the Dodger Stadium site that had a really big staff and no one wanted me when I came to that site. And I immediately made friends with all of the people that were actually running that site. And we built a fabulous, trusting team together quickly. So I did feel that when I left, they would be able to manage. And I showed them that like there is a different way to like do this and work together. I don't think I did everything perfect, I will say. But the feeling I had was that the skills that I learned in production are really, really great, but on paper, they don't look that way because all of the terminology and all the skill sets are slightly different. So in the business world, I was like, I know that all of this stuff that I have translates, but I need to learn how exactly it translates. Turns out it translates perfectly to leadership and operations and all that stuff.
Spreadsheets.
So spreadsheets. Yeah, no, I mean, spreadsheets are very, very common in both worlds for sure. But yeah, I was actually quite angry when I applied to get my MBA. I was like, I will fucking show everyone. And then I was feeling a little unworthy of it at first because I was thinking, I have
a little imposter syndrome when you were in the class.
Arts background, like everyone else is coming from finance and accounting and all this stuff. And then I was like, oh no, I got this because I got people skills. And people skills are so missing in the MBA world. I tell you what, oh my God, they are missing. So I came in with like a little more than I knew I had for those kinds of situations. Like I made friends with all the scariest professors right away.
Because you're used to big personalities.
Exactly. I was like, you're exactly like a crazy line producer. I knew. I got you.
Okay, Matt Damon. Whatever. Oh, no, Matt Damon's really nice.
Matt Damon is really nice. He's very hardworking. That's what I would say. He has a great team around him. He's very, very hardworking.
But he's not as sexy as I am. Sorry, Matt. Sorry, Matt. So it was a remote MBA program, correct?
It was hybrid. Yeah.
Hybrid.
So
That's
we did.
right. You did
we did
do
remote and on site
in-person sessions and what? So tell me the program. Can we say where it was? We can say
UC
where
Davis?
it was. UC Davis. Yeah. Okay.
It was the UC Davis OMBA program because it's
MBA.
online.
Oh, MBA. Oh, MBA.
Yeah. But then we do these in-person residencies that are really great.
So it's kind of like when you say it, you can say, "Oh, I have an MBA." But it was actually one of the O part of the MBA program predates COVID, is what you told me, which is important because after the pandemic and the lockdown, a lot of universities had to very quickly, and I worked at UCLA and I saw this shift happen. It was insane. Switch to a remote or hybrid model of instruction. But because this program predated COVID, there were already like not powerful, but like effective systems and processes, and they had already figured it out, essentially, right?
I would say they were figuring it out. There were only a couple, classes that had classes as in like the class of blah, blah, blah. Like there were only a couple people that had gone through the program, and they were definitely still finding their way.
Yeah.
But it was one of the earlier, more prestigious programs for online, and then a lot of other more prestigious schools followed. So at the time, I was looking between UC Davis and Pepperdine. They would take someone like me, where I was an adult with like a nice long work history, getting an MBA as an adult like that, you want to make sure that you're going into a program that actually serves you. I would not have done the same kind of work if I were surrounded by a bunch of 24-year-olds getting their MBA. Not that no one there was 24, but I got to work with other adult professionals who were all getting their MBA, and that was so good.
Yeah.
It was so great.
Especially because, and I just remember, because we started dating in the last year of your MBA program.
Yeah, I think it was. I got through it in 18 months, so that sounds right.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, year. Okay. That some of the projects that you were working on benefited from the fact that you were with other professionals, so you could like use your own experience as a case study for some class project or something like that. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, it's just different hearing someone who's like a mom talk about the value of a product when she actually knows what it is. You know what I mean? Like, and she's talking about, the other thing is like, you talk about the ethics of business differently when you've lived 10 or 20 years after your young 20s, and you actually kind of you have a little more experience in the world and what actually matters.
And crucially, and you keep bringing this up to me in a good way, your experience as a manager being faced with those difficult decisions where you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, no matter what you choose, you're going to piss someone off. That has given you, I think, a greater empathy for decision makers generally, more grace for them.
Yes, I do have a lot of grace for decision makers. That's nice that you point that out, because I think I talk about that a lot, of like, decision making for large groups is hard and it changes you. It absolutely changes you. Here's the other thing though, is like a 24-year-old trying to learn about leadership and different types of people. You can be told stuff all day, but until you've had the experience of trying to lead a team yourself, you can't apply what you've learned. So going to an MBA program, learning about this thing, like I'll never forget when I was truly got it, like, oh, I get it, how to use introverts' strength in a team. You learn a lot about that now in an MBA program, but I had just come off an experience where that happened to me. I had a gal who was like so great at certain things, but she was like kind of quiet and not really like a extroverted leader. So it was really easy to write her off. But actually she would like do all this stuff, and she had really good ideas. She just needed more time to digest. And then she was extraordinary, but she was introverted, and I almost wrote her off. And then I had to have this learning experience. Then when I actually learned the formal sort of way that you think about using people's strengths, and one version of that is looking at introversion versus extroversion, the extremes of that, and how you can maybe use that to your advantage in a team. that totally clicked in a different way. I would have never been able to like put that together from life experience as a 22-year-old.
Maybe you can't talk about this, but have you ever had to fire somebody?
I've never actually had to like have a you're fired conversation with someone, especially because that's sort of like HR world. I've never worked directly in HR. I have an HR hat in the business I work with now. I have had to demote people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've had to give a lot of constructive feedback, and I think that is a conversation I actually am getting a lot better at and look forward to.
I thought you were going to say enjoy.
No,
not demoting
it's not
people.
enjoyable,
no.
But it's something that getting better at works this like weird muscle that's really good for you.
Yeah, and it can also be a way of helping people.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what it is. Is that's how you can see it, is like, because when you go through a coaching program, which at the same time I was getting my MBA, I was also getting certified as an executive coach because I knew leadership was always going to be big on my heart. I've always really enjoyed proper leadership, and everybody soars and flies and loves their job when you have good leadership. When you have bad leadership, it's so bad and everyone's miserable. And I was like, that is the thing we have to encourage in the world.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you just kind of answered this question, but given the multidisciplinary career that you've had, dance, film, theater, crisis response, business,
juice companies,
7-Eleven,
Bed Bath & Beyond, court research, Postmates. I've done it all.
Oh, yeah. What's the common thread through all of that?
Yeah, I think the only common thread is that you do what I've always just done, what feels really right for the time. And what's different now is that I can appreciate that you can be really satisfied doing something that makes sense for you only and maybe not someone else. So when I transitioned out from the dance world, I think some of my old dance world people were just really confused and did like, oh, I thought you were this person though. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not only that person. Mm-hmm. And then when I left entertainment, the industry's kind of dying right now.
If you could give advice to your 20-year-old self or a 20-year-old listening that might want to get into one of the pathways that you've experienced, what kind of advice would you give?
Depends on the pathway. I do think if you're in your 20s and you're like panicked about decision making, it's probably slightly less important that you like choose the right thing versus squeezing the juice out of every opportunity you're given in your 20s. Because I joke about my 7-Eleven job a lot. The first W-2 job I ever had was working at a 7-Eleven in Oceanside, California. Our family friend owned it, so it was kind of like working for a father figure. It was not like a job that I just went out and got. It was a job that was available to me with a safe person to work for that would give me the hours that I need, that got me away from a home where my parents were getting divorced, gave me a little bit of money. Mm-hmm. Like, it was a cool place. And the skills that I took at 15, I was 15 when I started, the skills I learned at 15, I still use in the warehouse right now, because if you're open to it, every single job gives you valuable skills that you can choose whether or not you're going to apply them to other stuff. So when you learn about product at 7-Eleven, when the vendors come and they deliver product and you put the new product in the back, make sure the old product gets first, you learn about food and sanitation, you learn a POS system for how to process things, you learn about corporate culture a little bit, because of all that stuff. You're learning about money, you're learning about all this stuff. I mean, that job when I was 15 still applies right now.
I mean, same. When I was 15, I worked for Cold Stone Creamery, and to this day, if somebody hands me $1, I have to sing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Sorry, Bed Bath & Beyond.
A lot of the urgency that I felt was instilled in me as I was graduating high school is sort of a relic from past generations when people were used to dying in their 50s and 60s, right? It's like, you're an adult now, you need to like find your job, you need to settle down, you need to like get your career, you need to do this X, Y, and Z. But for me, my career didn't really start until I was in my late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
And I think that with the generations coming up, as we're, even talking about bumping up the retirement age and all of that, I think that's kind of been an overlooked part of our culture, is that I think your 20s, like you said, squeeze the juice out of whatever the fuck it is that you're doing. And it doesn't really matter what you're doing as long as you're doing something. You don't need to worry about, like, is this my career? Like, no, it's Bed Bath & Beyond, but you're still learning things. You're still growing as a person, or, maybe you're just saving up money to go travel Europe for a couple weeks, and that's your big experience. And that's fantastic.
Well, and I've always been a little bit of an overachiever in some ways. Not like I always got A+. It wasn't that. But like even at Bed Bath & Beyond, I was employee of the month within like 3 or 4 months because I got a free George Foreman grill out of it. I did.
Where the fuck is the grill?
I only got rid of it a couple years ago. I had it for so long.
And you never used it?
So no, I used it all the time.
Well,
I lived alone.
Wow.
For 6 years, I used it all the time. It was great. Making burger patties and thanks, George. But what I'm saying is, like, it seems silly, but actually if you trace back my mindset about work and how much I tried to squeeze the juice out of everything, and I actually worked for Evolution Juice before it got sold to Starbucks.
Squeezing the juice out of the burger patties?
Like anytime someone was like, hey, do you want to do this? Or anytime something came up where I was like, I'm not making quite enough money to do what I need to do right now, which was what happened with Postmates. I was working full time and I was like, I want to save money for this thing, so I'll just drive after work for a few hours. This is years ago, but like, there is something about that. Instead of being like, I hate work and work sucks and I just want to have fun all the time, my thing is like, actually like work, and I make work likable, and like it's a totally different mindset. Like I do like going to work. I am now choosing places where I like people. Aaron, that wonderful boss, showed me the way. That's what I'm saying, is like, you find places and you go to places that make work feel fun, and like it is a pleasure. We live in a for a while now anyway, I don't know when that might end, but we live in a pretty nice society where like you can have an enjoyable work life instead of like hauling rocks all day.
On that note, is there anything else that you would like to say to our listeners?
I would just encourage everyone to volunteer for something, I guess, because that's always gotten me far.
Even if it's just a single day thing or whatever at the food bank, peeling onions or whatever it is that you're doing that day at the food bank.
He had to do that. That's why I said
I did that after the fires. I volunteered for a little bit. But yeah,
right now, if I can like actually direct this call to action a tiny bit more,
sure.
SNAP benefits are running out for a bunch of people next week, and the food banks could really use donations if that happens. So if you have some extra cans of soup or some like more high or common nutritional value sort of stuff, like don't give them your old stupid food, right? Like give them good food they actually want. Sorry, but like cans of good soup or things like that. Go to your nearest food bank and fill them up, because people that need it the most, if their SNAP benefits run out, not only do they have nothing to eat, and their kids, really more kids than adults, are on SNAP benefits, but also the grocery stores everywhere are going to take a hit. So if you can afford it, buy stuff from the grocery stores, because they're going to take a hit, and then give that food to the people who can no longer afford it for however long this lasts. SNAP benefits affect 1 in 8 people in most states. It's really, really important to keep people fed.
And if you don't have food to donate your time. And if you don't have time or food to donate, I'm sorry. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in. People Fuss is a tight-knit production produced by yours truly, Doug Daniels.
And Carrie Prince.
Our theme song is
Human Colors by
Delicate Beats.
You got it.
And the cat fact is that I definitely have cleaned up the cat barf underneath this table.
Same day, same recording. Do you think it's real? Probably not. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Love you guys.